Hello everyone, welcome to Blue Dragon Universe, and this is the Excel course. So this is chapter 2. So here today we are going to mainly focused on names, and this is the name section. If you just press F5, right? Sorry, I was not highlighting this. So this is how you can give a name to this. I've just pressed F5 and you can see that. Also, you can go to insert. Sorry, you can go to formulas, and here you can see name manager, right? So you can also press Control F3, which was kind of indicated, which will show you different names. Right now, this workbook do not have any names. But before we get to names, and a name is a big section. There are many things that you can do with name. So this can be split into two parts. So before we do that, I just realized that there are some things that we have kind of not covered in the first session that probably we would have covered in the first session. So the first thing that you should do is kind of saving an Excel file. So in order to do that, you just press F12. So I'm just pressing F12 now, right? So if I press F12, it comes like this, like save as and different things. You can save this as there are multiple things. You can see that all this variety, right? And when we go into the Excel, the macro, right? So then you have to save it as macro enable workbook, right? But right now that is not needed. If you save it as CSV file like this, then like this, then you can only have only one worksheet. So we don't want that either. So it's better that we choose Excel workbook and save it like that, and we can save it in any place. So for example, suppose if I choose desktop, then these are the places that I can kind of store this, right? So maybe I can store this in uh, Actuarial, right, in my uh, case. And let me see if there is nothing, then you can create a folder, right? You can create a folder. So maybe I can create a folder like Excel, right? Course, and maybe let me call this Excel advanced course. And so while kind of saving, I just created an Excel file. So I just to save this, or to create this folder, I just click somewhere else. Once I were done typing the name, so then I click on this file, and then immediately I was able to see that, right? So now I can click on this and I can say Excel day 2, right? So that this will be stored and I can upload that whenever it requires. So I'm just conscious of the time so that I don't go beyond 45 minutes, because I think that is the maximum attention span that you people have, right? So I've saved Excel too. So a couple of things. So this is how we save a file, right? Pressing F12. Now, as I mentioned, I'm going to work on this, but there are a couple of things that I'm going to use before. So first of all, you need to understand what are the different types of error, right? So in Excel, so that whenever we see such error, we are not kind of alarmed by that, right? So first is whenever you divide something by 0. So if I just do 4 divided by 0, it will give me this error, which is called division by 0 error, right? Now suppose I am writing something that is not present in Excel, it will give me something called name error. Suppose I am writing my name, right? Arpan, right? And it is Excel will not be able to identify what exactly is Arpan. So it will give me name error. I don't know what do you mean by this name, right? So whenever you see this error, you have to understand, okay, this error is something that is not present. Okay. Now the next error is something that is relevant to NA function, and this will NA means, so it will come like this, N and then slash a. So this would become more clear when we do lookup function like VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP. Whenever you get an error there, you get this sort of error. So whenever you see this N error, it means that you are kind of getting like your lookup function is not working properly, right? So this would become more clear there. That lookup, or what a lookup function, lookup basically means that you are using some code or some command to kind of get some value from a table. That is why it is called lookup. It is looking up the value in the table. Okay, so then there it will become more and more clearer. And then there is something called null function, right? So this null function we are going to see today, or null error, right? So null error is a very interesting, this is a very interesting thing. I can bet that Nine out of 10 people using Excel would not know this. So this is how it looks like null, right? This is a set terminology. Set terminology means null means that it is not present in the interaction of two sets. Nothing is present in the interaction of two sets, means nothing is common between two sets, and that is where it is null. So this probably today or tomorrow, if this session gets split into two sections, then we are going to see that tomorrow, right? Moving on, then there is something called reference error. So reference error usually occurs. This is how it looks like, right? And everything here, usually everything, every sort of error will start with, would end with some special character like an exclamation mark here, a question mark here. Only NA does not end with any special character, right? But reference error means something has been deleted and now there is nothing present in that zone, right? So suppose you are referring to another worksheet or another formula, another workbook, right? And then if something is deleted so that that thing is not present there, then you will get a reference error. And finally, you get value error, right? And the value error is usually when you are trying to multiply, say A with B, it is not going to give you any result, right? So that is why you will get very low. So this is simple example, A multiplied with B, right? So if I just do this, sorry, it is giving me uh, wrong of the name error because it is not able to identify A and B. Let me just change this to A and 4. It is not identifying this. Let me find out a better example for value error. Value error actually occurs when we are using a function which have wrong argument. Maybe that can be. So basically we are supposed to give one particular type of value, and like maybe numerical, and we are giving alphabet value. So I think the better example would be sum, right? And let us sum all of this. So the all the sum is supposed to get numerical numbers, right? It is showing that please provide me numbers, but we are providing it with something else, right? And now it is giving the division by zero. Let me complete this. Maybe let me write this A, B, C. Maybe because all these are errors, so sum is not working properly, right? Let me check this, that how can we get the value error. Otherwise, value error always, I mean, I can define value error. Value error means that we are not giving the correct argument for a function. Okay, now in this case, sum is giving zero. So clearly sum is not working. Let me figure out what we can, but just remember, this is how the value error looks like. Value and then with an exclamation mark, right? So the formula, if it includes an argument or operand of the wrong type, and then we will get the value error, right? So I'm just trying to think of an example where it can be done. And so usually we do not remember this, right? Whenever we see error, I all like to an Excel user, everything is an error, right? And they do not go by the distinction. But for us, it is important to understand, like whenever you see an error, you should identify something is wrong with my VLOOKUP. That is where you become an advanced user of Excel, right? Whenever you see some name error, you know something is wrong with the formula. Maybe instead of typing text, I have missed the X. So it is tet instead of text. And right, that is why I'm getting the error, right? So I'm just thinking of an good example of the value error. Maybe let me think of something. Uh, Let me think of something, and then I'll come back and share the example. Okay, I finally managed to find one, right? So like I was doing the similar sort of thing. So earlier I just missed something, like if you remember, I was doing 2 into A, but A would be taken as a formula name. So that is why I have to convert that to string, and that is why I need to put this invitation or in double invite quote, right? So this double quotation will kind of help me. So if even if I put a star there, it will give me sorry. So even if I put a star there, right, it will give me a value errors. It means that you are multiplying two different sort of operand. You cannot multiply a number with an alphabet, and that is what it is kind of giving me the hint for, right? So these are the different types of error, right? And I think I have shown you all the example. Another function that we need to remember, and this is kind of very important with respect to um, maybe lookup. Like whenever we do lookup, we are going to see this, and it is also very important for the array formulas. So that function is called indirect. It's a volatile function. It makes the Excel heavy. So I will avoid using this function because it is a bit difficult. But as such, I mean, if you want to understand this is not that difficult. But Excel, there is many uses of this function which we are going to explore obviously in this course, and that can make Excel like this worksheet very heavy for Excel, and that is why you should avoid using that function, right? So that maybe just to give you an example, suppose here I have written maybe just let me write my surname, okay, Sengupta, and I want in C, somehow I want the value of E3, right? So there is another way I can do that. If I just kind of equate this, right? So I'll get Sengupta here as well. But suppose I want a different way to do that. So here I know that this value is present in E4, that I can see here, right? So suppose here I just wrote E4, okay, E4, and I can use the indirect function to refer to this, so that this get converted into cell address, and then ultimately it will refer to this. So that is why it is called indirect. So I'm writing indirect, okay, and it is going to refer to this, right? So whatever value it is, and the remaining value, you can see that it is reference text. This is the mandatory argument. You have to provide this, and remaining would be optional. Like there are multiple things that you can do, and I don't want to go into that detail of indirect because sooner or later we are going to explore this. So if I just do this, right, so you can see how it is working. This indirect is kind of converting this into a cell reference, right? So indirect is converting this into a cell reference, and then we are able to see the same value. It is almost equal to, like if we made this equal to this, so then this is how the same thing is happening. Is just that whatever value is put here, that is referring to a particular cell, and indirect is converting that into a cell address, right? Which is where something important I want to show at this point of time, which is very helpful for debugging, which is like here you can also see show formulas, error checking, all these things are there, but I personally do not use that much. But evaluate formula is something that I use regularly. So here you can go step by step. So here the formula is indirect and D6. The moment you put this, it shows E4, right, and within a quotation. So that means that it is taking the value of E4, and now your E4 is finally this, right? So you can write a complicated formula. Suppose you want to convert, so this 4, this is a month, say this is an yearly interest rate, right? This is yearly, then interest rate, okay, and now you want to convert this into monthly interest rate, right? So here you are writing month, and which would be given by 12, right? So now you want to convert this into monthly interest rate. You have to just correct the spelling. So how we are going to do that, right? We need to know the formula, and that formula is 1 plus this number, right, divided by 100, okay? So that is the that is where we are converting this into percentage, right? Now we have to convert this into monthly rate, right? So for that we have to raise this to the power 1 by 12, okay, and then that will give you something at the form, like basically the interest rate with 1 added, but we don't want that. So in order to get that in percentage form, we are going to get this, right? Now this entire thing, I want this to be represented as a percentage, so I'm going to multiply this with 100, right? So I'm going to multiply this with 100, which will give me this, right, which shows that it is coming out to be 3 to something, 3273, right? Actually it is much smaller, because 4 you are converting this to in that format, but I am converting this into monthly rate in a percentage term, which is coming out to be 0.32%, right? So if you want to see how this calculation is happening, so this is one. Now if you click on evaluate, this is coming out to be H6 is coming out to be 4. So immediately if you see some, somewhere, if you have a very big formula and if you want to kind of understand how it is working, you can see this like 1 plus 4 by 100, then that is converted into 0.04. So you can see every step, right? And there you are applying 1 to the power 1 by 12, right? Then you are multiplying, 1 by 12 is getting converted into this fraction, right? And then the calculation is happening, and then you are multiplying 100, right? So this is how you can do the calculation, right? And so along with that, there is another example that I want to cover today, and then move to the name section, right? I've seen that already you have used some time. So that section is not related to name as such. Till now, whatever you have seen can be somehow used in names. We'll see that, right? The error, not the error part, but I think this formula and everything and the evaluation, etc. Whenever we make some mistake, we are going to use the evaluate button, right? So that it also gets ingrained in you, and this is what we are going to use, right? But now we are into the data tab, right? And there we are going into what if analysis, and now we are going into goal seek, right? So goal seek is basically used, like if you are an actual student, it is used for pricing, pricing in life insurance product. So where we have a particular profit target and we want to vary one parameter so that we get a desired target, right? So that is how our goal seek is used. So how you can change goal seek? So I suppose I want to change this, right, to 5, or maybe zero point 0.5, right? So this value I am changing to zero point 0.5, right? This one, H10. I'm changing this to zero point 0.5, and which cell I need to change? This one. So there should be some relation between this one and this one, right? So if there is no relation, we cannot change, we cannot use goal seek, right? But we know that this formula, this number is derived from this one, so we can easily use that. So here I'm choosing this one, right? So now if I click on OK, so here this is kind of using this number. So basically if your yearly interest is 6.16, right, then with 12 months you are going to get 5%, right, or 0.5%, sorry. Now if I just press OK, then this number would get converted, right? So this is how we use goal seek whenever there is a formula involved, right? Like here there is a formula involved, this is the input. So how can we change the input so that we can get to a desired output, right? So that is the purpose of goal seek. So you are seeking the goal, that is why it is called goal seek. Okay, so this is very easy to use, and we'll also do several application of goal seek and scenario manager and data table. All these are part of this course, but I think goal seek is the most easy, and it's very often used, right, especially if you are an actual student. So that's it. Now we are going to kind of start with the name, right? And for that we are going to get into the formula tab, right? Because this Excel course is based on formulas, that is the basis, right? We are going to be advanced user, right? So right now there is no name that is present, and we are going to create a name. Suppose this, first of all, to maybe to do anything, let us kind of create a table, right? So that we can use that. Okay, so maybe let me write the name of the month, right? Jan, Feb, and then March, right? And I think you obviously, maybe you might already be knowing that if you want to carry this pod, you just select this three, and then you bring your cursor to this, that you can see there is a minor dot, and now I'm going to kind of drag it down, right? So this way we can get this, right? So Jan, Feb, March, then till December we have got the data. And suppose we are using year 1, right? Suppose we are going to get the data for year 10, right? Year 2, and in that way. So now we can do the same application here. So we are just going to drag this, right? And you can see that it is automatically taking the value. So maybe till year 10, right? And suppose these are representing some numbers, maybe some interest rate or something. So we are going to write, like we are just going to fill this table, right? So for that we are going to use some function called rand between. This means random number between, right? So suppose we are going to choose 5 and 20 as the upper limit and the lower limit and the upper limit, right? So here this will be 14, and from here I'm just selecting the table, right? And then when you need to press the, you need to paste the formulas. This is what I do: Alt S, right? So the moment I press Alt S, it will open this special window, right? So Alt S, and then whatever I want to press, I have to press, the where this, you can see there is a small bar behind, I mean at the bottom, right? So this is at the bottom of F. For V, this is at the bottom of V. For format, it is at the bottom of T, not at the bottom of F, right? For comment, it is at the bottom of C, right? So here I am going to press F because I'm going to press the formulas, right? Alt T S F. So the moment I press, so you can see these are the random numbers that have been generated. So I have some data to play with, right? Now the if you just refresh this, kind of refresh this, how you are going to refresh this? If you just press Shift and F9, right? So it will refresh the entire thing. And once again, you can see the moment you refresh this, this formula gets refreshed, and the moment it gets refreshed, because it is a random number, it is going to change the value, right? So what I'm going to do is, once again, I don't want this value to change every time, right? So I have just copied that, right? I've copied that. I've put this cursor here. I've put Control Shift down to come here, and then I've put, kind of. So this is how I've done this. Let me, if I just cancel that out. So here I put my cursor here and or selected this cell. Then I'm pressing Control Shift down, so it will select the first row. Then my Control and Shift are kept on pressed, and then I will be selecting Control Shift right arrow. Okay. So the moment I do that, the entire thing is selected. Now I press Control C to copy this. And now if you have the Windows button in your keyboard, not all laptop has Windows button. If you have the Windows button, then you just press Windows and sorry, I think there should be a right click button, right? There should be a right click button. It usually is present in the between in the left right hand side between Alt and Control, right? So in the left hand side there will be an Windows button between Alt, Control and Alt. But in the right hand side of the keyboard there would be a Windows button. It is only present if you are using a proper keyboard. Sometime like my laptop do not have that button, right? So if you have that right click button, then you can click on that right click button. So it will work like this. It will kind of create show you the options, and I will just press V, right? So the moment I press V, right click and V, right? So all these are converted into, you can see these are not formulas anymore, right? Or what other thing we could have done, similarly we'll select this, Control C, Alt S, right? So the moment we press Alt S, this special window will open, and then we'll press V, right? So the moment I press this, so it is Alt S V, right? And it is doing the same purpose, right? So sometime whenever you do not have that Windows button, the Windows button is very easy. You do not have to press multiple button, but whenever you do not have that button, maybe then Alt TSB will work always. That is present everywhere in all keyboard, right? Okay, so coming to the names now, here let us open a name. So here you can see maybe we have to kind of enter a name here. So suppose we are going to this one, right? For this, I suppose I wanted to define a name, right? So this is the name, and for this I am referring to sheet B3. So Excel has automatically assumed that whatever the value is present here, that would be kind of that would be the name of the cell, which is what I want. So here I'm going to click OK, right? So that I can show you something. So here you can see this is the name. Earlier there was no entry here. Now Jan, this is the name of the cell. Here you also you can see Jan. Now there is no shortcut to refer here. Unfortunately, there is no shortcut that you can refer to this drop down, right? So you can see the sound is coming, that it is not letting me click anywhere else. But so let us just finish this. So the name of this cell is Jan. The value in this cell is also Jan. It refers to sheet, right? It refers to sheet, and the scope is workbook. You can also change the scope, right? So for example, if I click on edit, right, right now you won't be able to change this, but when you create this, you can again delete it. You can again delete this and then create that. Maybe let us do that. So here here you can see, remember that this is the scope is coming out to workbook. We can, so workbook is the bigger parent. Like workbook consists of the worksheet. If you remember, the first video where I mentioned this is based on object oriented programming language. The bigger thing is the Excel application, and then there would be workbook and worksheet, right? So first of all, let me delete this, right? So the moment I delete this, it is B3, right? Now, suppose I'm going to click on this once again, right? Or define name. And now instead of using workbook, I'm going to use worksheet, right? So the better use or the how why this scope is different. So it means if you have defined a name called Jan, you can use if the scope is workbook level, then you can use that everywhere in this workbook. You can have a sheet 2 and refer to Jan, and the same value would be populated. However, if that is not the case, then it will only be working in sheet 1, it will not work in sheet 2, right? So just to show you an example, okay, so here you can see now I have the Jan, which the scope of this is sheet, right? So suppose here I came here and here I'm going to write Jan, okay? So immediately it is recognizing Jan and it is storing the value of Jan. But suppose I opened another sheet and here I'm going to write Jan, right? So it's not going to recognize that. It is showing me a name error, right? Like we have discussed, so it is showing me a name error. It is not able to recognize that because the scope of that variable or the scope of that name is only this worksheet. Had that been workbook, then the same name would work here. Maybe just to prove that. So let me clear that out. Scope you cannot change, you cannot edit the scope. You can change the reference from B3 to B5, but you cannot edit the scope, right? So here let us close this and let us once again, not this one, right? Let us go to Jan. This time we will not change the default. Obviously, the default scope is workbook, but sometime we may not want that to happen. Sometime we may have different different files, different datas, and we do not want something to flow between two worksheet. So there it is very important, right? So Jan, and let us see if Jan works. So here you can see Jan is working here, right? Jan is working here. If you come here and now also if you write Jan will work here as well, right? So now the scope of the workbook, scope of this name has changed, right? So that is how it works. So let me check if I have anything else that I wanted to share with you. No, I have seen the name. So you cannot write conflicting names, right? Sometime you might have, so works if you can have conflicting names on workbook level, right? Because or you maybe one name can be same and the workbook level. So you might have a Jan in workbook level, and then in the same worksheet you might have a another name called Jan with the scope as worksheet, right? Or at the sheet, then both will work because workbook level name would work everywhere, and in that sheet the worksheet level name would also work. But otherwise both, you cannot have another variable named Jan, right? So just to give you an example at the with the same scope, right? So suppose we come here and this suppose this one, right? And I'm going to define the name. Suppose I try to call this Jan, right? Right now I have another variable which is referencing something else, and that is called Jan, and the scope is workbook. So this should not work, right? And here you can see it is throwing a warning that this name already exists. The name should be unique. But if we change the scope, right? So maybe close this, okay? But if we change the scope to worksheet, right? Sheet 1, right? And call this Jan, then this should work. You can see now it is working. Now if you go to the manager, now here you can see there are two names, same name, right? Jan and Jan, but one is referring to sheet 1, one is referring to workbook, which is a very important point to note. It depends entirely on the sheet, right? Let me check my notes if I have anything else that I wanted to discuss on this point. There are so many things here. So I have already taught you about creating names, editing names, deleting names. We have already seen. Obviously, you can edit this name, right? You can click here and you can change this, right? You can change this to anything. You can change this to this, right? And if you click on OK, right? So it will change, right? I don't want to do that, so I'll just refer it back, okay, to the appropriate cell, right? Jan should only refer to Jan, not to anything else. So that's how it is. But like that, you can do that. I think that's a very simple thing to understand, right? Now here I'm just conscious of the time. I'm seeing that we are reaching close to that 45 minutes mark. So I don't want to kind of take extra time here. Let me see if we can do something so that we can end this session in a good note and in something that we can learn. So yeah, I've kind of covered all of this. Now let me see if we can so now what I wanted to do is sometime we want this entire table, right, to be consisting of named range. So whenever we refer to Jan, it will refer to this row, right? Whenever we refer to Feb, it will refer to this range, right? So suppose we want to do something like that, right? And to do that, and obviously when we refer to year one, it will refer to all this, right? So year one will represent this range, year two will represent this range, right? And in that way, right? So that is what we wanted to do. So in order to do that, let us kind of go to define name and create from selection, right? So choose maybe let us select this table, right? So select, we have to select this entire table. Okay, and then we are going to do the use. So maybe let me select this, let me demonstrate. Now here you can see define name, right? So I'm clicking on define name, and here it refers to you can give the entire range a name as well, right? So I can so whenever I kind of do that, suppose it can be used to look up, like this is a table and it can be used to look up, right? So maybe we can do that first. Suppose I call this my range, right? So I can call this my range, right? Another thing that I just forgot to mention, and that is throwing error here. So here your name cannot have a special character. It can only start with underscore. It cannot start with a number, right? So there are some kind of guidelines for that. So whenever you write a name, you cannot write a space because it's a special character. So I'm just putting my range. My name is my range. So here you can see this is this is how it is. Kind of it is stored in a array format. You can see there is a second bracket. I don't know if that is visible properly, but if you are following this with me and doing this, which obviously you should, right? So that is how you are going to learn. So then you will see that these are stored in an array format. So this entire range is called my range, right? But our purpose was different. Now let us suppose I put my range here, my range, right? Suppose if I put my range here, so it is going to highlight this, right? Suppose I put enter here, it is not going to understand this, right? But if I want to see that, right, let me check this, my range, right? And let me check what happens when I press Control Shift Enter. So it is not working in this case. There is something else that I'm going to cover later. I was trying to use array formulas, but maybe we can do that later, otherwise it will get too complicated. Let us come back to this, right? And the name range can be used for array formulas as well, but we are going to do that later when we come to array formulas, otherwise it's extremely complicated, right? And already there's so much of information kind of thrown at you, so it will be difficult, right? So our purpose was to kind of select this range, like whatever this is, this range, and call that Jan, and then select this range and call that February, and so on, right? In that way. So in that case we have to go to formulas, right? Formulas, then define names, right? And we have to choose this create from selection. Okay, so let me, sorry, I have not selected the right thing. Okay, so I've chosen that create from selection. Now Excel is automatically showing that do you want to select the top row and the left column, right? So Excel is automatically showing this, right? Which is what I'm going to do. So this is the row name, this is the column name, right? So create names from the values in this top row. Top row would give you the value for the columns, right? And this one will give you the value for the rows, right? So click on OK, right? And here we have some definition of Jan. We already have that, right? So Excel is asking, would you like to replace this? And I say, yeah, we want to replace that, right? So now if you go to name manager, you see there are so many things that you have created. Earlier, these were not there, right? Obviously, there is this, there is this Jan, which is workbook level, right? But we don't need this. We have created this earlier. All the names that we have created earlier is there, but this name is also there, right? So you can see this, right? This is the only name. Maybe this can cause confusion, right? So I'm maybe we can remove this, uh, and this as well. So let me check what are the, because we have created Jan variable couple of times, right? So we have created this Jan variable couple of times, and yeah. So I think that is fine. But I mean, if you see this, February is showing you this data, right? February, if you click this, February is showing this data. I'm not going to. I mean, obviously there are two variables. So Jan one is on with scope of sheet worksheet. One is of workbook level. So you can see that. But I don't want to kind of delete and create anything. But here my purpose was to kind of show you how you can do that, how you can create a name for the table. And so whenever you call on Jan, you automatically know, okay, Jan will fetch me all the details for the row from Jan, right? Similarly, February will fetch me all the details for Feb, right? So in that way we can get the details, right? Now suppose you want to say for February, you want the value for the year 4, right? So how can you do that? Now this is where that lookup function comes into picture. But right now let's just assume that you know the lookup function. So here this is a lookup function which we are going to study in lookup function chapter. But here we are going to choose Feb, right? So we know that there is a name called Feb, so it is getting the value, and we know this value, we want this value, right? Year 4. So we are going to write 4 because we need the fourth value, right? So let us see what happens, right? So the moment I press that, I'm going to get 17. So this is happening because index is getting a range, which is this, and out of that range we are getting the fourth value, right? You can see how easy it is to get the number, right? Same, you can do the same for year 4. So suppose for year 4 we want the value of the column, right? So now index, there will be a slight change. I'm going to write index. Okay, now I'm going to write here for, by the way, the names are not case sensitive. So if you have small Jan and capital Jan, it will be the same, right? So names are not case sensitive. So here we are not going to, here you can see this is row number and column number. So we are not going to give any row number, right? Because we need the column number. So here we are going to skip that. And since we need this, right? So we are going to put 2, right? So we're going to put 2 here. Let us see. Uh, did I made any mistake? Okay. So here I have to write year 4, right? I have written only year. So this is year 4, right? If I think I have written it correctly. Let me rewrite this. This always happens in Excel. Now we have got year underscore 4. So another thing that you can see, that because the name cannot accept space, so anything that has space in the name, it has automatically converted that into underscore, right? So here I'm going to skip that, and I'm going to put 2. This should work. Let's see. Okay, so it is giving me a reference error. So why reference error means that its value is not present. We already know what type of values reference error means, right? So something is deleted. That is where we're getting the reference error, right? So what could have been wrong here in this case? That is what we have to figure that out. And maybe after we figure that out, we are going to close here. So now till now we have understood how we can get the the number. Let us check if because here how index is actually getting the value is index is getting the value as an array, like it's a cluster of numbers. So instead of maybe here it is showing a reference error, because in this case index is kind of seeing the value as an array. How we can determine that, right? Is if we go here, right? If we go to the formulas, and here we are seeing this error, right? So if we go here and if we evaluate, right? So here we can see what is happening actually. We have already shown you the evaluate. Now click on this. Here it is showing me the the range, which is F3 to F14, right? If we click on further, so it is not able to identify anything in the column because it is getting a range. So what we have to do is we have to treat this as a row only, because to Excel as of now using the index function, it is not a column, right? It is not a two-dimensional table. Excel is index is kind of getting this as a row, right, which is a one-dimensional thing only. So it is not, it is looking as a column to us because we can visualize this, but for Excel it is just a a vector, right? So here only 2 will work. So the moment we press 2, it is going to work, right? So here we have started with the names, and here we have kind of created names out of the name of the month and the column, right? And we have also identified different ways we can get the values, right? So I hope you are enjoying this, and let me stop here, otherwise the video will become extremely large, and then you probably will lose interest. So the best way to do this is, whatever I am doing, try to follow me. I am keeping a very slow pace deliberately so that you can follow me, right? And it's also easier for me to explain, right? So yeah, that's how it is. And then we are going to see a couple of interesting and beautiful solutions for names, right? I have so many things written down. I was just not able to cover that today because the other sections took some time, right? So see you in the next video.